Okay, so
And
yeah. First thing, last week, Donna was right. That is Percy Pollock on page 43. Am I saying the name right, Donna? Well, I can't understand you anyway. So it's Percy Pollock was the Pollock. That doesn't sound right.
No.
Is the psychologist who they're talking about. If it was my choice, I wouldn't take you guys. You're too painstaking. It's too hard. So that's I looked him up a little bit. I didn't learn anything about him, so I could act like I tried to. We are recording. A lot of you guys know we're recording this so that if you miss something, you can. If you miss a night, and you can find it on NaplesRetreat.org. Go to events and then go to Big Book, the Big Book Deep Dive. Naples. Yes, it is. Retreat.
you do that on purpose, don't you? Just when you
You think so?
It's like a weekly thing.
I misspelled it.
Keep coming back.
If you're going to insult the speaker, you got to put an extra $5 in the bucket when it goes by. Thank you for pointing that out. Is it spelled right now? So go to NaplesRetreat.org. They were up today. Now they're down. They're going to be up shortly. We're going to try to put a password protection on it. If we do, the password is going to be, I'll try to spell it right, recovered. Capital E, recovered.
Capital E.
Capital R. I'm excited. I'm excited tonight. This is this. I'm going to stop writing on that. Actually, half the fun is the writing. Remember, you're dealing with a guy who couldn't finish school, so couldn't finish high school. And they come to me, Paul, for solutions to their problems. So it's exciting to be here. Does everybody have the set-aside prayer? Anybody need it? You got one, John? No? Anybody need a set-aside prayer?
Give him two.
I haven't memorized it yet.
What's that?
I said I haven't memorized it.
If you don't have one, look on a neighbor. You guys share. All right, let's try to take a moment, quiet ourselves, our busy day. Catch our breath, ask our Heavenly Father to come join us on this night. Try to leave everything going on in our life, let's try to leave it outside and let's just come here and be as a group and meet as a group and try to see if we can't find a solution for our common problem. And we'll start with the set-aside prayer. God,
please set aside everything I think I know about you, everything I think I know about myself, everything I think I know about others, and everything I think I know about my own recovery. For a new experience with myself, a new experience with others, a new experience with my own recovery, and especially a new experience with you.
all right, thank you everybody. Welcome, my name is Paul, I'm an alcoholic.
Hey, Paul.
So grateful to be here tonight, and I used to never read this chapter. We're on page 44 tonight. I used to never want to read this chapter because I was a good Catholic guy, and hi Brian, and he snuck in here. You know,
Stage direction left.
never mind the spelling. I think I got them all right, but I don't know. I'm so excited to hear I spelled it right. But anyway, I was a good Catholic guy, and I was married in the Catholic Church, married Catholic woman. We made lots of Catholic little people, and I thought that pretty much proved it. And I thought I had this down, but I was drinking still going out and drinking. But then when we come to this chapter, whenever I came to this chapter, even after I sobered up in my first couple of years, I was still confused with my old ideas. And so tonight we're going to go through and read what is easily one of the most important chapters in me becoming a recovered alcoholic, is letting those old ideas go. And if we get lucky tonight, I'll share tonight a story of what would happen to me last night, if I remember to, because it was quite a night last night. The first half of step 2 is in There Is a Solution. And the first half of the second step is came to believe. Came to believe. That's all we're asking. We're going to talk about this word is. And we're going to read tonight that he doesn't say you have to believe in a God. The only thing that's required is you believe there is a God. There's a big difference in those two words. And so if you're stuck on this, if you're agnostic, atheist, or even if you're like I was, which you've got it down, I know who God is, that might have been the most dangerous things I've ever said. I know. I don't have to discuss. I've got it down. And someone said to me, it's not what you don't know that's going to kill you, it's what you do know. You're so freaking smart. And I even had a priest say to me, in the confessional, a priest said to me, you have this all effed up. Go to AA and do what they tell you to do. We don't know what to do with you. Yeah, and he told me, don't come back here. He said to the men, Rick, stop coming to date morning mass too, please. Yeah, please, because he knew that we don't know, he knew exactly what was going on with me. He said, you got it all. And then what happened, of course, I wanted to call the bishop and tell him he had a priest that's way out of line. Second half is what we're going to read tonight. Huh? Do you believe this power can restore you to sanity or sane thought? So that's what we're going to talk tonight. We agnostics. Definition of agnostic that a lot of people say is without knowledge. Gnostic is knowledge. I think it's a Greek word. They put ag in there to mean without knowledge. Agnostic. I am agnostic when I come in. I had a man the other day say, I can't understand why I keep using. And I said, that's a piece of cake. He says, I have no idea why I went out again. And I said, it's a piece of cake. I can tell you exactly why you went out. You're agnostic. He goes, oh, no, I'm not. I said, yeah, you're, because guess what somebody once told me when I was crying and, you know, I'd gone out again, and the guy says, you went out, Paul, because you're agnostic. I said, no, I believe in God. Joe and Charlie have, I think, the best definition I've ever heard. An agnostic is a man who says he believes in God, but acts as if he doesn't. And that, when I heard that on the Joe and Charlie tape, man, it hit home. It hit like, would a guy who believes in God do the things I'm doing when I'm not drinking? Or when I'm drinking? We're going to read about the devil and soul. Lou is going to kick us off tonight. Yeah. We talked a little bit when we read more about alcoholism, about changing the word to more about agnosticism. Whenever you see the word alcoholism or agnostic, or alcoholism or alcohol, you can change the words to agnostic or agnosticism. Well, this is true with we agnostics. You can change the words to we alcoholics. And when he starts talking about agnosticism, you can start talking about alcoholism. The two words, the sentences make sense. And so kick us off, Lou.
All right, we agnostics. In the preceding chapters, you've learned something about alcoholism.
He just made an assumption. In the preceding chapters, the assumption is we've read the preceding chapters. Okay, and we have, haven't we? How about that? We've read every word. All right.
We hope we've made clear the distinction between the alcoholic and the non-alcoholic. If, when you honestly want to, you find you cannot quit entirely, or if when drinking you have little control over the amount you take, you are probably alcoholic. If that be the case, you may be suffering from an illness which only a spiritual experience will conquer.
So when he says that we made the distinction between the alcoholic and the non-alcoholic, he's talking about the real alcoholic and the hard drinker and the moderate drinker. Remember, we talked a lot about that. What am I? It's the qualifying process. And he talks about the difference here. Remember, he said a hard drinker, if a sufficient reason, ill health, falling in love, a doctor's opinion, a doctor's suggestion, the hard drinker can stop or moderate his drinking. And here's what he's saying. Here's the real alcoholic. If you honestly want to, when the doctor gives you that, or you fall in love, or a sufficient reason, if when you have all of that, and you find you still drink, when you swear off, remember we talked about a page 5 problem, Bill Wilson? He swore off, this had to be stopped. My wife happily observed, this time I meant business. Next line, shortly afterward, I came home drunk. So if you've sworn off drinking, and you drank again, and then the second question is, when you start drinking, you have little or no control over the amount you take. You're probably a real alcoholic. If you've ever gone on like websites of treatment centers, or you can even do, the questions, how do I know, qualify me? You'll get a ton of stuff. There's one very famous treatment center. I think they have some 30-some questions. These 2 questions are in there. And if you go through and just answer those 2 questions yes, and no to everything else, like have you been married and divorced? Have you lost jobs? Do you have physical consequences? Do you get shaky in the morning? Do you vomit when you drink? They have all these questions, Do you have a DUI? They go through the consequences and stuff. But if you just answer these 2 questions, very famous treatment center, and then it kicks it back. You're probably not an alcoholic, but you're getting there. I don't forget how the wording goes, but it's like, but our book says, yeah, you're one of us. You should probably look at our solution. Okay?
One who feels he's an atheist or agnostic, such an experience seems impossible. But to continue as he is means disaster, especially if he's an alcoholic of the hopeless variety. To be doomed to an alcoholic death or to live on a spiritual basis are not always easy alternatives.
Those are the only two choices we have if we're a real alcoholic.
But it isn't so difficult. About half our original fellowship were of exactly that type. At first, bless you, some of us tried to avoid the issue, hoping against hope we were not true alcoholics. But after a while, we had to face the fact that we must find a spiritual basis of life or else. Perhaps it is going to be that way with you. But cheer up, something like half of us thought we were atheists or agnostics. Our experience shows that you need not be disconcerted. If the mere code of morals or a better philosophy of life were sufficient to overcome alcoholism, many of us would have recovered long ago. But we found that such codes and philosophies did not save us, no matter how much we tried. We could wish to be moral, we could wish to be philosophically comforted. In fact, we could will these things with all our might, but the needed power wasn't there. Our human resources, as marshaled by the will, were not sufficient. They failed utterly.
That's the power of the mind and body trying to solve my dilemma and not using the power of spirit. That's what I'm going to church for. That's why I'm going to morning mass. That's why I'm showing up in confession in between my drinking bouts, is I'm trying to think my way through this. When I go to confession and I confess these things, like I confess I'm a thief, when I leave, I'm a forgiven thief. I'm still a thief. I'm just forgiven. And I'm going to steal again. I proved it over and over, the things I was confessing. And that's why the priest says, enough already. It's the same sin coming up and up. You're just a forgiven adulterer. You're just a forgiven thief. What Alcoholics Anonymous is going to do for me is teach me why, and then what is the solution so I do stop stealing. Why am I stealing? And guess what? Why I'm stealing? Same answer, why am I drinking? I'm agnostic. I have problems with agnosticism. Go ahead.
Lack of power, that was our dilemma. We had to find a power by which we could live, and it had to be a power greater than ourselves, obviously. But where and how were we to find this power? Well, that's exactly what this book is about.
Okay, so what did we talk about? What came first, the book or the meetings? Remember? The book. So we can change that to that's exactly what our meetings are about. Our meetings are about for the recovered alcoholic who has found the power to share with the unrecovered exactly how and what then, how that power works in him. So the unrecovered alcoholic can come in and hear what the solution. We are supposed to talk about in meetings our relationship with God and how we got that relationship.
Its main object is to enable you to find a power greater than yourself which will solve your problem. That means we've written a book which we believe to be spiritual as well as moral, and it means, of course, that we're going to talk about God. Here, difficulty arises with agnostics. Many times we talk to a new man and watch his hope rise as we discuss his alcoholic problems and explain our fellowship. But his face falls when we speak of spiritual matters, especially when we mention God. For we have reopened a subject which our man thought he had neatly evaded or entirely ignored. We know how he feels. We've shared his honest doubt and prejudice.
Definition of prejudice, an old idea.
Some of us have been violently anti-religious. To others, the word God brought up a particular idea of him with which someone had tried to impress them during childhood. Perhaps we rejected this particular conception because it seemed inadequate. With that rejection, we imagined we had abandoned the God idea entirely. We were bothered with the thought that faith and dependence upon a power beyond ourselves was somewhat weak, even cowardly. We looked upon this world of warring individuals, warring theological systems, and inexplicable calamity with deep skepticism. We looked askance at many individuals who claimed to be godly. How could a supreme being have anything to do with it all? And who could comprehend a supreme being anyhow? Yet, in other moments, we found ourselves thinking, when enchanted by a starlit night, who then made all this? There was a feeling of awe and wonder, but it was fleeting and soon lost.
Sounds a lot like Bill's story. Remember, Bill gets this spiritual awakening, and then he said it was soon blotted out by world clamors, mostly in my mind. Anybody watch the news here a lot? You want world clamor? Start watching the news. You want to get restless, irritable, and discontent? Get on Facebook or any other social media and start comparing your insides with everybody's outsides. Yeah, it gets very, very painful. For me anyway, my experience was when I was watching the news and reading the paper, and I'd click it on and I'd start getting fear, and world clamors would start to come in, and all of a sudden I'd start to ask why, why? How could there be with what's going on and what I see on the video? And then I was taught that why is a management question. Who am I to say that the war in Ukraine is not bringing millions of people to God? And maybe it's perfect in his world, but here I am saying, why? Why did the election go this way? Why is the stock market doing this? Man, I'll get these wheels spinning, and pretty soon I'll get the efforts. The hell with it. What's the point? Yeah, and I know where that leads me.
Yes, we of agnostic temperament have had these thoughts and experiences. Let us make haste to reassure you. We found that as soon as we were able to lay aside prejudice and express even a willingness to believe in a power greater than ourselves, we commenced to get results.
That's the second step promise, one of them.
Even though it was impossible for any of us to fully define or comprehend that power, which is God.
And what are some of the, what is that feeling, expressing a willingness to believe in a power greater than ourselves, we commence to get results. All of a sudden, I don't seem to be fighting things anymore. All of a sudden, my family is, although different and not where I'd like it to be, all of a sudden it's just, you'll experience this when I started doing the steps, and I work with a lot of men, and when they finally start doing the steps and they start to surrender to the second step, all of a sudden they start reporting like, I got a job offer, or my work is going better, or I'm still on the couch, but she started talking to me again. Just these things. It's like, I don't know what's going on. Here's this next one, and this paragraph is going to be a promise with a condition.
Much to our relief, we discovered we did not need to consider another's conception of God. Our own conception, however inadequate, was sufficient to make the approach and to effect a contact with him. As soon as we admitted the possible existence of a creative intelligence, a spirit of the universe underlying the totality of things, we began to be possessed of a new sense of power and direction, provided we took other simple steps. We found that God does not make too hard terms with those who seek him. To us, the realm of spirit is broad, roomy, all-inclusive, never exclusive or forbidding to those who earnestly seek. It is open, we believe, to all men.
So the promise is to earnestly seek him and to do the rest of the steps. Now, there's an interesting thing here. You hear this a lot in AA, and we get it backwards. Much to our relief, we discovered we did not need to consider another's conception of God. I was at a weekend retreat at Hazelden, and the speaker said, in Bill's story, he said, well, do what Bill's story says, come up with a God of your own conception. But that's not what Bill's story says. But you hear it a lot, come up with your conception, come up with a God of your own understanding, come up with a God of your own conception. But it's really come up with your own conception of God. There is but one God. How I access him, or my conception of God today, and the steps are past tense, God as I understood him. We don't change God. We don't take the doorknob or the light bulb. For me, where I was at, I had to take group of drunks. My sponsor suggested that I forget everything I was brought up with, and group of drunks, God, our home group, and he said, take the home group and realize that they're sober and happy, and you're sober and miserable. And just do what they do what we do, you might get what we got, which is sobriety and happiness. And he said, forget about all your old ideas, all your prejudice, let them go. And so I started following, and I found out what their prayer life was like, how they reacted to life. And what happened then is when I go back to church, I go back to the church of my youth, Catholic church, and it became alive. It was so different. And what the group of drunks did for me was teach me that I had no idea how to pray, that I didn't know how to use God, that I didn't treat God like a friend. I had these old conceptions of what God was, and that was what was blocking me. I was frankly afraid of God. God's on my fourth step. Why? And we'll get there, why God was on my fourth step. But it was my old conception, my old ideas that was blocking me from accessing the power that's going to relieve me of this session to drink. Does that make sense? Anybody? So it's a conception of God, not a God of our conception, because I don't know about you, I don't know how many people we have here tonight, but if we all wrote down what we'd like God to be, I don't know if we'd get a God we could use very much. I don't know.
AA is many gods.
He has many conceptions of God. But when you read the book, though, the God, it's always your conception, keep growing, keep growing. God, as I understand him today, better not be, my relationship, my understanding of God, better not be the same way in a year from now. It better get deeper and deeper and deeper. And my friend Paul is here. He's got many, many years of sobriety. I'll bet you didn't talk this way 20 years ago. The God that you're praying to, your conception of God is different, deeper, I hope. Yeah.
When, therefore, we speak to you of God, we mean your own conception of God. This applies to other spiritual expressions which you find in this book. Do not let any prejudice you may have against spiritual terms deter you from honestly asking yourself what they mean to you. At the start, this was all we needed to commence spiritual growth, to effect our first conscious relation with God as we understood him. Afterward, we found ourselves accepting many things which then seemed entirely out of reach. That was growth, but if we wished to grow, we had to begin somewhere. So we used our own conception, however limited it was.
Here's a yes or no question.
We needed to ask ourselves but one short question. Do I now believe, or am I even willing to believe, that there is a power greater than myself?
We don't ask you to believe in. All we're asking is, do you believe there is? The moon was fantastic last night. Beautiful this morning.
Oh, yeah.
Huh? And we noticed these guys,
Sorry.
we walked outside, me and two beautiful men, and we had just experienced this thing together, three guys experiencing God, and we walked out and I said, look at the moon. There's nothing around it. There was no stars, no Saturn, no whatever the planet is, Venus. And it was just like, it's incredible. And, I'm chilled right now. And thank you, God. Thank you, God. Did he create the moon? Did he create this? Did he create this? I believe he did. For moments like last night. Oh, watch this. I'll blow him away. Just the three of us.
As soon as a man can say that he does believe or is willing to believe, we emphatically assure him that he is on his way. It has been repeatedly proven among us that upon this simple cornerstone, a wonderfully effective spiritual structure can be built.
And now it's going to ask us for a third different reason. Please be sure to read Appendix 2. So let's go to 567. And Chase kick us off. 567.
Spiritual experience. The terms spiritual experience and spiritual awakening are used many times in this book, which, upon careful reading, shows that the personality change sufficient to bring about recovery from alcoholism has manifested itself among us in many different forms. Yet it is true that our first printing gave many readers the impression that these personality changes or religious experiences must be in the nature of a sudden and spectacular upheavals. Happily for everyone, this conclusion is erroneous. In the first few chapters, a number of sudden revolutionary changes are described. Though it was not our intention to create such an impression, many alcoholics have nevertheless concluded that in order to recover, they must acquire an immediate and overwhelming God consciousness, followed at once by a vast change in feeling and outlook. Among our rapidly growing membership of thousands of alcoholics, such transformations, though frequent, are by no means the rule. Most of our experiences are what the psychologist William James calls the educational variety, because they develop slowly over a period of time. Quite often, friends of the newcomer are aware of the difference long before he is himself. He finally realizes that he has undergone a profound alteration in his reaction to life, that such a change could hardly have been brought about by himself alone.
Please circle the word reaction. Remember, we circled it a few times as we were reading more about alcoholism. What is his problem? Why does he react this way? It even says that he goes a period of time without a drink and everything seems to be getting better, and yet there he drinks again. Why does he react this way? I love the idea that he hasn't drank in a while and everything sure looks better. But if you get real close to me, you can hear it just bubbling inside, man. I'm just looking for a reason. Why is it? Because everything is getting better. I'm working better. I'm sleeping better. Everything starts to get better, but deep down inside, and why is it? Something's missing.
What often takes place in a few months could seldom have been accomplished by years of self-discipline.
That's how long it takes to do the steps, a few months.
With few exceptions, our members find that they have tapped an unsuspected inner resource which they presently identify with their own conception of a power greater than themselves.
Where's the source? Inner. Inner what? Inner me. Inside of me. We're gonna get that coming up.
Most of us think this awareness of a power greater than ourselves is the essence of spiritual experience. Our more religious members call it God consciousness.
That's when you look at the moon and say, thanks God, that's pretty good. You can do that again.
Most emphatically, we wish to say that any alcoholic capable of honestly facing his problems in the light of our experience can recover, provided he does not close his mind to all spiritual concepts. He can only be defeated by an attitude of intolerance or belligerent denial. We find that no one need have difficulty with the spirituality of the program. Willingness, honesty, and open-mindedness are the essentials of recovery, but these are indispensable. There is a principle which is bar against all information, which is proof against all arguments, and which cannot fail to keep a man in everlasting ignorance. That principle is contempt prior to investigation. Herbert Spencer.
And so that's a requirement. Willingness, honesty, and open-mindedness. If you want to do the steps, I got to get my mind wrapped around that I don't know anything. I don't know is the most powerful words, most powerful 3 words my sponsor got me to say. I don't know. I don't know. Yeah, it works. Ready, Joey? What page are we on?
47.
Thank you. I knew that. I just wanted everybody else to know.
That was great news to us, for we had assumed we could not make use of spiritual principles unless we accepted many things on faith which seemed difficult to believe. When people presented us with spiritual approaches, how frequently did we all say, I wish I had what that man has. I'm sure it would work if I could only believe as he believes. But I cannot accept as surely true the many articles of faith which are so plain to him. So it was comforting to learn that we could commence at a simpler level.
That's where that assignment of asking 5 people, you say, I wish I had what that man has. I wish I could believe as he believes. We're asking you to go find that person and say, how'd you get there? And how do you stay there? Because you'll find out it just isn't that hard.
Besides the seemingly inability to accept much on faith, we often found ourselves handicapped by I don't know that word.
Obstinacy.
Yeah. Sensitiveness and unreasoning prejudice. Many of us have been so touchy that even casual reference to spiritual things made us bristle with antagonism.
Here's a must.
This sort of thinking had to be abandoned.
Give it up.
Though
Give up
some
the
of
fight.
us resisted,
Yep, keep reading.
we found no great difficulty in casting aside such feelings. Faced with alcoholic destruction, we soon became as open-minded on spiritual matters as we had tried to be on other questions. In this respect, alcohol was a great persuader. It finally beat us into a state of reasonableness. Sometimes this was a tedious process. We hope no one else will be prejudiced for as long as some of us were.
So when we're talking about God in meetings, not too long ago, a guy came up to me and said, I wish you wouldn't talk so much about God. You chase the newcomers away. You talk way too much about God. And I said, I'd rather have the guy leave us to go sit in a bar and think about me talking about God than sitting in here thinking about drinking, because you guys talk way too much about drinking. Maybe we should be talking about God, all right? And by the way, I was the guy that left the meeting. I was sick of what they were talking about in the meeting, because they were talking about God, and they used specifics personal to them. And I sat in a bar and said, man, if they got it wrong, they should really fix that meeting. I did. I could see the meeting. I went right to, I can tell you what bar it was, and I ordered a beer, and I said, man, if they would just let me run that meeting. It's a true story.
The reader may still ask why he should believe in a power greater than himself. We think there are good reasons. Let us have a look at some of them. The practical individual of today is a stickler for facts and results. Nevertheless, the 20th century readily accepts theories of all kinds, provided they are firmly grounded in fact. We have numerous theories, for example, about electricity. Everybody believes them without a murmur of doubt. Why this ready acceptance? Simply because it is impossible to explain what we see, feel, direct, and use without a reasonable assumption as a starting point. Everybody nowadays believes in scores of assumptions for which there is good evidence, but no perfect visual proof. And does not science demonstrate that visual proof is the weakest proof? It is being constantly revealed as mankind studies the material world that outward appearances are not inward reality at all. To illustrate,
Isn't that a great line? He's writing this in 1939. Outward appearances are not inward reality at all. You know what he's talking about? Facebook. You know, or social media postings. You know, look at that. Look how happy that family is 2 years later. They're getting a divorce.
the prosaic steel girder is a mass of electrons whirling around each other at incredible speed. These tiny bodies are governed by precise laws, and these laws hold true throughout the material world. Science tells us so. We have no reason to doubt it. When, however, the perfectly logical assumption is suggested that underneath the material world and life as we see it, there is an all-powerful, guiding, creative intelligence. Right there, our perverse streak comes to the surface, and we laboriously set out to convince ourselves it isn't so.
With our old ideas.
We read wordy books and indulge in windy arguments, thinking we believe this universe needs no God to explain it. Were our contentions true, it would follow that life originated out of nothing, meaning nothing, and proceeds nowhere. Instead of regarding ourselves as intelligent agents, spearheads of God's ever-advancing creation, we agnostics and atheists choose to believe that our human intelligence was the last word, the Alpha and the Omega, the beginning and end of all. Rather vain of us, wasn't it? We who have traveled this dubious path beg you to lay aside prejudice, even against organized religion. We have learned that whatever the human frailties of various faiths may be, those faiths have given purpose and direction to millions. People of faith have a logical idea of what life is all about.
What he's asking me to do is start to believe in the group's thinking of God. Group of drunks. This is what my sponsor told me. So I get to know these men with this somewhat open mind, still pretty close, but a little bit open. All of a sudden I started to meet a fallen away Jew, a Muslim, sworn off atheist who now believes. But the point is, I start to meet men, and they have vastly different ideas of what God is, and it's working for them. And I take a little of this and a little of that and a little of this, and what happens is they all just come together, and it started enriching my life. Like, I can do what he does. I can do what he does in a situation. I get that, and I start to hear the stories. One man's story of adult children that's still 27 years sober, and his adult children have children. He's never met his grandchildren because of what he did while he was drinking, and he's happy, and he told me how he made amends to his kid. I mean, it just was this beautiful story. Like, I would have never thought of it like that. And so what I'm getting is new experiences through their experiences, and my mind starts to open up.
Actually, we used to have no reasonable conception whatsoever. We used to amuse ourselves by cynically dissecting spiritual beliefs and practices when we might have observed that many spiritually minded persons of all races, colors, and creeds were demonstrating a degree of stability, happiness, and usefulness which we should have sought ourselves. Instead, we looked at the human defects of these people and sometimes used their shortcomings as a basis of wholesome condemnation.
Doesn't being cynical just come natural? I just become a cynic, like, I not believe in it. All right.
We talked of intolerance while we were intolerant ourselves. We missed the reality and the beauty of the forest because we were diverted by the ugliness of some of its trees. We never gave the spiritual side of life a fair hearing. In our personal stories, you will find a wide variation in the way each teller approaches and conceives the power which is greater than himself. Whether we agree with the particular approach or conception seems to make little difference. Experience has taught us that these are matters about which, for our purpose, we need not be worried. There are questions for each individual to settle for himself. On one proposition, however, these men and women are strikingly agreed. Every one of them has gained access to and believes in a power greater than himself. This power has in each case accomplished the miraculous, the humanly impossible. As a celebrated American statesman put it, let's look at the record.
We're gonna get some promises here.
Here are thousands of men of women, worldly indeed. They flatly declare that since they have come to believe in a power greater than themselves, to take a certain attitude toward that power, and to do certain simple things.
Here's number one.
There has been a revolutionary change in the way of living and thinking. In the face of collapse and despair, in the face of the total failure of their human resources, they found that a new power, peace, happiness, and sense of direction flowed into them.
Wouldn't that be nice? That's four promises there. A new sense of power, a new sense of peace, a new sense of happiness, and a new sense of direction. Huh? That sounds like pretty much we're only changing everything. There's only one thing you gotta change, and that's everything. Your sense of power, your sense of peace, your sense of happiness. You know, and what was making me happy at the time when I come in was empty. It was empty, man. I saw things, shiny things, you know, relief. Eventually it's gonna be a shot of Jameson to make me happy. And what do I get? Misery.
This happened soon after they wholeheartedly met a few simple requirements. Once confused and baffled by the seeming futility of existence, they showed the underlying reasons why they were making heavy going of life. Leaving aside the drink question, they tell why living was so unsatisfactory. They show how the change came over them when many hundreds of people are able to say that the consciousness of the presence of God is today the most important fact of their lives. They present the powerful reason why one should have faith.
Remember our priority list? The number one thing in my life is the presence of God, is to serve God. And when I come in here, we say it. And then we start to find out, we're going to do a second step proposition here in a second. But it's easy to say, but boy, get ready. Because as soon as that's up on the top of my priority list, to serve God, the presence of God is the number one thing in my life. Get ready to give up some things. Okay. Joan?
This world of ours has made more material progress in the last century than in all the millenniums which went before. Almost everyone knows the reason. Students of ancient history tell us that the intellect of men in those days was equal to the best of today. Yet in ancient times, material progress was painfully slow. The spirit of modern scientific inquiry, research, and invention was almost unknown. In the realm of the material, men's minds were fettered by superstition, tradition, and all sorts of fixed ideas. Some of the contemporaries of Columbus thought a round earth preposterous. Others came near putting Galileo to death for his astronomical heresies. We asked ourselves this: are not some of us just as biased and unreasonable about the realm of the spirit as were the ancients about the realm of the material? Even in the present century, American newspapers were afraid to print an account of the Wright brothers' first successful flight of Kitty Hawk. Had not all efforts at flight failed before? Did not Professor Langley's flying machine go to the bottom of the Potomac River? Was it not true that the best mathematical minds had proved man could never fly? Had not people said God had reserved this right to the birds? Only 30 years later, the conquest of the air was almost an old story, and airplane travel was in full swing.
So why is he bringing up Langley? Do you guys know the story of Langley? So Langley is, of course, CIA headquarters, right? It's named after him. He's the smartest mathematical mind, scientist, probably in the world at this time. And they want to fly. The government wants to fly. They want flight for military purposes. They want to take off and go behind enemy lines, cut off supplies, and then bomb their enemy. So the government goes to Langley and says, we know you can figure this out. Mathematics, science can prove this. You can get it in the air. Meanwhile, these Wright brothers, these bicycle repair guys, they're fooling around trying to get the same thing going. They have a childlike, he's going to call it a childlike faith. Langley comes up with it. They plant a reporter with him. He's going to report it. They promise Langley that the aviation, aviation will be yours. You'll be allowed to patent it, I think, is what they were promising him. So he's doing it for, first of all, the government is commissioning Langley for a purpose that's probably not of God. Can we say that? To go and kill and destroy things. Langley is doing it for a purpose probably not of God. Ego, recognition, approval, money, any number of things. And of course he gets it up and he crashes it into the river and says, hey, listen, if I can't do it, clearly only the birds are going to be allowed to fly. Meanwhile, you got these two faith-like knuckleheads down at Kitty Hawk who are going to turn they're going to figure out that the problem, they think they got all the math done. They're pretty smart guys, for sure. But they realize they just don't get enough speed, and they figure out that Kitty Hawk's probably pretty windy. If we turn this thing into the wind, maybe that'll get us lift. And I got a brother, and I can just see the two of us knuckleheads. And I just love, we don't know, I don't think we know which one was in when it got up. Do we know? I'm asking you like you were around then. We'll see you next week, maybe.
They're still going in the photographer.
It's still going, they still are. That's what I thought too when I heard that, yeah. Like a helicopter hit something and they both went down, yeah, terrible stuff. But I always think, when they get it up in the air, which other brother was in it, it's like, how do we land it? Like, and then think of the next stuff. But I think our author is trying to encourage us when our creative mind gets going is what is the motive behind the creative mind? Because maybe if the motive is not of God, it's going to meet with a lot of friction and a lot of difficulty. I bought a house a few years ago. It was not of God. The facts are in. It was such a stupid purchase. And I didn't bring it to God. I saw my ego was fed, approval, everything. And it's just, when you reflect back, I can see how I put my own creativity for my own not of God purposes. And now, of course, it's just a mess. Anybody looking for a house? By the way, that's great. I love it. I love it. I think you get what I'm saying. We can keep reading.
But in most fields, our generation has witnessed complete liberation of our thinking. Show any longshoreman a Sunday supplement describing a proposal to explore the moon by means of a rocket, and he will say, I bet they do it. Maybe not so long either. Is not our age characterized by the ease with which we discard old ideas for new? By the complete readiness with which we throw away the theory or gadget which does not work for something new which does?
Okay, we're going to get something called the bedevilments. This is the promises of agnosticism. These promises will come true. This is also the definition of untreated alcoholism. We're going to try to do something fun. So you can, we're going to read this, and I promise we're going to come back to the paragraph. Okay.
We had to ask ourselves why we shouldn't apply to our human problems this same readiness to change our point of view. We were having trouble with personal relationships. We couldn't control our emotional natures. We were a prey to misery and depression. We couldn't make a living. We had a feeling of uselessness. We were full of fear. We were unhappy. We couldn't seem to be of real help to other people. Was not a basic solution of these bedevilments more important than whether we should see newsreels of lunar Earth flight? Of course it was.
Okay, everybody got their notebooks? Okay, if you don't have your notebooks, I want you to answer these. I'm going to ask you 12 questions. This is, am I suffering from untreated alcoholism? 0, I don't have this. 10, I've got it bad. Fair enough? 0 to 10. All right, 12 questions. You can just keep it in your head, too, what number you have. Though I feel I'm a liberated thinker, I'm unable to change my point of view with regard to my human problems. Just think, what comes into mind? Human problem, am I unwilling to let go of my old idea? I'm having trouble with human relations. All right, 0 to 10. I can't control my emotional nature. Hey, Ted, did you give someone the finger today, Peggy, on the driving? I'm a prey to misery and depression. 0 to 10. 0, I am not a prey. 10. I cannot make a living. I have a feeling of uselessness. I am full of fear. 0 to 10. I am full of fear. I am unhappy. 0 to 10. I can't seem to be of real help to other people. I seem to be more interested in the news than in addressing these bedevilments. I think if I distract myself, I can escape my misery. The news is a good experience. I thought I had it bad. Look at what happened to that family. 0 to 10. I can't stop doubting the power of God, even though I see others solve their problems by relying on the spirit of the universe. 0 to 10, yeah. I can't stop doubting the power of God, even though I see others solve their problems by relying on the spirit of the universe. I see it works in others, but I'm not going to trust him. You know how that shows up? I got a secret and I'm not going to share it. I'm not going to share it with my sponsor. I'm not going to tell him. Yep, because I doubt. Number 12, last one, 0 through 10. I am having a hard time admitting that my old ideas aren't working. I think I got my first 10. Anyway, here's what it says. All right, these are from the professionals. A total above 60 points. If you got 60 or higher, you're pretty bedeviled or suffering with untreated alcoholism. And then you can compare it with the 9-step promises. We're going to do that later when we get to the 9th step. But I thought this was an interesting. This came from this weekend, and I took it from him so I could take all the credit. But I thought it was pretty interesting. It's the boiling frog. I don't think we said gave the boiling frog analogy. You know, you take a frog and you throw him in boiling water. You know what he does? Jumps right out. But if you take that frog, you put him in lukewarm water, and you slowly raise it till it's boiling, he'll sit there and die. And I know that I've taken several men, I've asked them how hot the water is. And they're like, no, no, no. And we get them to the confession part that really, without drinking, they're not drinking. And I'm working with a guy, and I can ask him out, and he's like, what are you talking about? I can see it in you, man. You're dying. And then we start doing the inventory part, and they say, man, the water was hot. As soon as I get out of the water, right, it's like, holy cow, was that hot? This feels good, right? You know that one. Yeah, okay.
When we saw others solve their problems by a simple reliance upon the spirit of the universe, we had to stop doubting the power of God. Our ideas did not work, but the God idea did. The Wright brothers' almost childish faith that they could build a machine which could fly was the mainspring of their accomplishment. Without that, nothing could have happened. We agnostics and atheists were sticking to the idea that self-sufficiency would solve our problems. When others showed us that God's sufficiency worked with them, we began to feel like those who had insisted the Wrights could never fly. Logic is great stuff. We liked it. We still like it. It is not by chance we were given the power to reason, to examine the evidence of our senses, and to draw conclusions. That is one of man's magnificent attributes. We agnostically inclined would not feel satisfied with a proposal which does not lend itself to reasonable approach and interpretation. Hence, we are at pains to tell why we think our present faith is reasonable, why we think it more sane and logical to believe than not to believe, why we say our former thinking was soft and mushy when we threw up our hands in doubt and said, we don't know.
And that's he's referring to Bill's story, page 11.
When we became alcoholics, crushed by a self-imposed crisis we could not postpone or evade, we had to fearlessly face the proposition that either God is everything or else he is nothing. God either is or he isn't. What was our choice to be?
Okay, we're passing around. Does everybody have one of these now? It's a 2nd-step proposition, so this is your week assignment. Is on the back. It's going to need to write it down. And what this is, 2nd-step proposition, is what we just got. They're coming around. They're coming slowly around. 2nd-step proposition exercise. In a specific spiritual experience for members of Alcoholics Anonymous interested in attaining a new level in the 4th dimension of existence. Remember we talked about 4th dimension? Over the first 3 dimensions. Decision making. We're talking about the decision making, the dimension in which I make a decision. The first dimension is physical. 2nd dimension is logical. And the 3rd dimension is emotional. So I buy or I purchase or I make a decision to do something based upon those 3 dimensions. Physical, will it hurt me or will it help me? Will it make me emotional? Will it make me feel better? Logical, does it make sense that I buy this house? By the way, that's the only 3 dimensions I bought this house in. I liked all three dimensions, said, yeah, go for it. Rocketed into the fourth dimension means I'm going to make decisions based upon spiritual. Had I gone into that fourth dimension, I think we would have chuckled and I would have walked away. All right, members of the Alcoholics Anonymous, interested in attaining a new level in the fourth dimension of existence. The whole purpose of this exercise is to have a new experience and discover that which has been blocking us from God. You know, God, I ask you to, okay, it's the priority list. What is coming before God in my life? And I had one this morning. I can put my first one on there. And what came before God this morning was time. Because I got up late and I wanted to get to a meeting. And I was rushing. Even my driving was rushing. And I found myself saying, I could hear, I didn't have the radio on. I'm quiet. I'm trying to be quiet. And I could just hear God saying, so what if you're late to the meeting? You walk in 5 minutes late. Big deal. Stop driving like a madman. Stop feeling rushed. I really wasn't driving all that bad, but I felt it. You know, like, I hope that light, and then you got to go over the bridge to Marco, and the cop is always sitting there. And it's like, so you do 50 up the bridge, and you get up to the top, and not me, never. Oh, wait, thank you, wait. But you get so watch your week as you go through, you know, and you feel yourself stress or tension or frustration, you know, and it's like, I'm in these three dimensions, you know, I'm making a decision based on my physical, logical, or emotional condition, and I'm not asking myself, it's a simple question, God, what would you have me be? It's going to be in our fear prayer. God, remove this fear and direct my attention to what you would have me be. And that's a prayer I can use. Be late to the meeting, Paul. Chill out. Don't come running into the meeting. Actually, I got there 2 minutes early, of course. I knew that would happen. I knew I'd get there early, but it's like, once you just calm down and go enjoy look at the beauty. Look at where I'm at, you know. I'm in Rookery Bay, driving up over a beautiful bridge, and it's like, get out of my way.
Three would be pissed if you were late.
The greeter, yeah, the greeter. Yeah, that's really what I'm afraid of is the greeter. He's a mean bastard. Boy. Okay, I forgot where we are. Over the bridge.
Yeah.
You know, on the bridge, it's just like that movie we saw last
It
night.
is.
Every time I go over that bridge, I say, thank you, God.
Thank you, God. Okay, yeah, oh, I'm sorry. So, pass the bucket, half goes to pay for our expenses. By the way, I keep forgetting to mention, if you don't have a big book, you don't have a notepad, I think I saw, Steve-O, we got plenty of big books still, don't we? Or do I need to get more?
No, we're okay.
Okay, we're okay. If you don't have a big book, please take one with you. I should have mentioned it at the start. You can get up right now and grab one, and it's your big book. It's our pleasure, and we split this with the church, and then pay for our expenses and the little bit of food that it cost us. And by the way, if you have nothing, perfect. We're glad you're here. We'd much rather have you here than your money, for sure. Okay? I don't have any idea where we are anymore.
I do.
Okay. Is it John?
It is.
All right.
Arrived at this point, we were squarely confronted with the question of faith. We couldn't duck the issue. Some of us had already walked far over the bridge of reason toward the desired shore of faith. The outlines and promises of the new land had brought luster to tired eyes and fresh courage to flagging spirits. Friendly hands had stretched out in welcome. We were grateful that reason had brought us so far, but somehow we couldn't quite step ashore. Perhaps we had been leaning too heavily on reason that last mile, and we did not like to lose our support. That was natural, but let us think a little more closely. Without knowing it, had we not been brought to where we stood by a certain kind of faith? Or did we not believe in our own reasoning? Did we not have confidence in our ability to think? What was that but a sort of faith? Yes, we had been faithful, abjectly faithful to God of reason, to the God of reason. So in one way or another, we discovered that faith had been involved all the time. We found too that we had been worshipers. What a state of mental gooseflesh that used to bring on. What a state of mental gooseflesh that used to bring on. Had we not variously worshipped people, sentiment, things, money, and ourselves?
And that's what this list will be. It'll be the things you worship. I got some things here, you know. People, sentiment, money, approval, myself, pride. I just wrote a few things here that I've struggled, that I find myself worshiping. You'll have your own list. You'll have a big one. The Vikings, the Wild, the Twins, yeah,
And then with a better motive, had we not worshipfully beheld the sunset, the sea, or a flower, who of us had not loved something or somebody? How much did these feelings, these loves, these worships have to do with pure reason? Little or nothing. We saw at last. Were not these things the tissue out of which our lives were constructed? Did not these feelings, after all, determine the course of our existence? It was impossible to say we had no capacity for faith or love or worship. In one form or another, we have been living by faith and little else. Imagine life without faith. Were nothing left but pure reason, it wouldn't be life. But we believed in life. Of course we did. We could not prove life in the sense that you can prove a straight line is the shortest distance between 2 points, yet there it was. Could we still say the whole thing was nothing but a mass of electrons created out of nothing, meaning nothing, whirling on to a destiny of nothingness? Of course we couldn't. The electrons themselves seemed more intelligent than that. At least so the chemist said. Hence, we saw that reason isn't everything. Neither is reason, as most of us use it, entirely dependable, though to emanate from our best minds. What about people who proved that man could never fly?
we're gonna try to rise above our problems here.
Yet we have been seeing another kind of flight, a spiritual liberation from this world, people who rose above their problems. They said God made these things possible, and we only smiled. We had seen spiritual release, but liked to tell ourselves it wasn't true. Actually, we found ourselves, we were fooling ourselves, for deep down in every man, woman, and child is the fundamental idea of God.
So he tells me that deep down is the fundamental idea of God. Now, he's gonna double down on that later on, but keep that in the back of your mind. The idea of God is deep down inside me. Keep reading.
It may be it may be obscured by calamity, by pomp, by worship of other things, but in some form or another, it is there. For faith in a power greater than ourselves and miraculous demonstrations of that power in human lives are facts as old as mankind, as man himself. We finally saw that faith in some kind of God was a part of our makeup, just as much as the feeling we have for a friend. Sometimes we had to search fearlessly, but he was there. He was as much a fact as we were. We found that great reality.
And that's capitalized, great reality.
Deep down within us. In the last analysis, it is only there that he may be found. It was so with us.
So now it's no longer an idea of God, now it is God deep down inside me. In my conscience is, in all of us, and I believe in all of us, is our Creator.
We can only clear the ground a bit. If our testimony helps sweep away prejudice, enables you to think honestly, encourages you to search diligently within yourself, then, if you wish, you can join us on the broad highway. With this attitude, you do not fail. The consciousness of your belief is sure to come to you.
Sounds like a surrender promise to me. If I surrender myself to these beliefs, to the group of drunks, to Alcoholics Anonymous, and I surrender myself into doing the work that's coming up, that it cannot fail. With this attitude, I cannot fail. God cannot fail me.
In this book, you will read the experience of a man who thought he was an atheist. His story is so interesting that some of it should be told now. His change of heart was dramatic, convincing, and moving.
This is our southern friend, and this is Fitzmayo he's talking about.
My friend was a minister's son. He attended church school, where he became rebellious at what he thought was an overdose of religious education. For years thereafter, he was dogged by trouble and frustration, business failure, insanity, fatal illness, suicide. These calamities in his immediate family embittered him and depressed him. Post-war disillusionment, ever more serious alcoholism, impending mental and physical collapse brought him to the point of self-destruction. One night, when confined in a hospital, he was approached by an alcoholic who had known a spiritual experience. Our friend's gorged roses. He bitterly cried out, "If there is a God, he certainly hasn't done anything for me." But later, alone in his room, he asked himself this question: Is it possible that all the religious people I have known are wrong? While pondering the answer, he felt as though he lived in hell. Then, like a thunderbolt, a great thought came. It was crowded out. It crowded out all else. Excuse me. Who are you to say that there is no God? The man recounts that he tumbled out of his bed to his knees.
To his knees, that's our prayer knuckles. All right, that's our prayer knuckles. They give us some direction, an act of humility. I resisted getting on my knees for a long time, about 2 years. And I plead for you not to be so long. If you're not trying it, at least try it. And then you can tell me it doesn't work. But boy, I tried it, and then I started praying out loud. I was on my knees for a while. I was really working well, and then a lady suggested, Paul, why don't you try praying out loud? I'd never thought of that. And I tried that, and I'm not giving that up either.
In a few seconds, he was overwhelmed by a conviction of the presence of God. It poured over and through him with the certainty and majesty of a great tide at flood. The barriers he had built through the years were swept away. He stood in the presence of infinite power and love. He had stepped from bridge to shore. For the first time, he lived in conscious companionship with his Creator. Thus was our friend's cornerstone fixed in place. No later vicissitude had shaken it. His alcoholic problem was taken away. That very night, years ago, it disappeared. Save for a few brief moments of temptation, the thought of a drink has never returned.
So this guy has this spiritual awakening, bam, there is a God, much like Bill Wilson. And he says, in this great relief, save for a few brief moments. That's that moment when I'm in the bar, my wife is eating, or I'm watching a football or something, I got good reason to be there, and all of a sudden a beer goes by. And I go, oh. That's those brief moments. And then they just go, they just leave, the ridiculousness of it. I went to my sponsor once because they were coming to me, those thoughts. It wasn't an obsession by all means, and he just said, just proves you're an alcoholic, Paul. Normies don't do that. It's just God reminding you the same for you. So I'm glad for my few brief moments, because I always gave into them, and I don't give into them. Of course I don't give into them.
And at such times a great revulsion has risen up in him. Seemingly he could not drink even if he would. God had restored his sanity. What is this but a miracle of healing? Yet its elements are simple. Circumstances made him willing to believe. He humbly offered himself to his Maker. Then he knew. Even so has God restored us to all our right minds. To this man, the revelation was sudden. Some of us grow into it more slowly, but he has come to all who have honestly sought him. When we drew near to him, he disclosed himself to us.
I draw near to him on my knees, out loud, in the morning alone. It's 7:01. Can we just go 5 more minutes? Do you guys mind? I want to try to do something. Can we? Anybody mind? I know if you're in a hurry. Is that okay, Mike? Can we go 5 more minutes? You know what 5 minutes is to me, don't you? Okay. So, anybody here ever, like I'd hit my sister and my mom would say, you'll feel guilty. You'll feel guilty. Anybody ever feel guilty? Anybody ever feel guilty in the room? All right, so guilt, right? So guilt is a feeling, right?
No.
Thank you. What is it?
A fact.
Guilt is a fact. Remember, we just read, and I know guilt in the dictionary says it's an emotion, but for my sake, guilt is not an emotion. It's not a feeling. It's a fact. The judge, when I go in front of the judge, he doesn't say, I sentence you to feeling guilty. He says, you are guilty, and I sentence you to whatever it is. So here I have guilt, and the guilt I'm having with it said deep down inside me is my Creator, the judge, if you want. How about that? The judge. I am his, I want to say slave. I am his servant. He is my master. Fair enough. When you go deep enough into this stuff, it's really true, and that's why you don't ask why. I'm the employee. I've had hundreds of men and women work for me. And a quick, sure way to get fired is go, why am I doing that, Paul? Why do I got to drive there, Paul? Why do I got to get rid of that guy, will you? He just won't do what I tell him to do. God kind of does that with me. Why, Lord? Why? Why can't I leave her? Why can't I leave them?
After every word, why is an argument.
Yeah, do you hear that? After every word, why is an argument. Just say yes. When can I do it? So that's what I'm suffering from, and it's sin is what I'm suffering from. Sin, I had a real hard time with that word. I gave it a real theological dogma kind of, I wanted to break it down. And my sponsor, who was the fallen away Jew, said, Paul, sin, is just any thought or action which separates you from God creates guilt. So any thought or action which separates me from God. It's real easy. You know, just invite God in and say, hey, God, I'm thinking about picking up that 20 bucks I just saw him drop and keeping it. What do you think? Should I keep it? Or should I just, you know, I'm sure they don't, you know, I start doing it and pick it up and you bring it back and you go, here, Jason, you dropped this 20 bucks, you know, hey, thank you. Right? How about the wrong change? Anybody ever get the wrong change? Huh? And keep the $2.08? Yeah, that'll eat you alive, man. That'll get me drunk. So, guilt is caused by sin and the feelings of guilt. So I have feelings of guilt. And these are my feelings. You can come up with your own, but these work pretty good. Regret, remorse, and you better believe I know how to spell these.
Yeah.
And this is a big one here. Shame. That's why I come in like this. You know, the first words I said to my sponsor when he came up to me, he said, Paul, he came up to his, Paul, and he called me and I turned around and I said, nice shoes. Because honestly, God, the first thing I turned around, they were green with lime stripes. That's the first thing, because that's all I ever noticed about anyone, because shame. What does Bill say about Ebby? There was something about his eyes. You know what it is about his eyes? His eyes were up. Eyes are the window to the soul. So I have so much shame here. So here, if I'm suffering from guilt, what takes it away? How can I deny my guilt? Real quick. What takes it away? Huh? I don't know about prayer. What kind of alcoholics are you? How about a drink? Yeah. How about a drink? Yeah. Maybe you guys aren't real alcoholics. Right? Huh? I'm doing terrible things. When I go to the bar and get a shot of Jameson, you know what I say? But the IRS writes letters to everyone. Do you know what the IRS does? I get letters from the IRS. I was getting them all the time. Huh? You know what they do with our money? A couple more drinks than me? If you were married to her too, you'd be doing what I do. Right? All of a sudden the guilt's like, a couple shots of Jameson, a beer in front of me, maybe plans for the future. Huh? Like in 2 hours? That's my future. I'm a drinker who's got to go. I have a couple drinks. I was going to stay, but I get in the car. You know, I got to go. Are you running? Got to go? Yeah. Beer's better over there. Yeah. And then where I end up at 3 in the morning? Yeah. And then what happens is so what I start to do is I start to renounce the drinking, because the hangovers are bad, the consequences are bad, everything's going bad with the drinking. It's not working there. I'm done with the drinking. The drinking is the problem. If I just wouldn't drink and drug the way I'm drinking and drugging, life would be so much better. So I renounce it. I'm done with it. Bill did it on page 5. Lois, get the Bible. He wrote the date down in the Bible. My wife happily observed, this time I meant business. Thank God that drinking's behind. Shortly afterward, Bill comes home drunk. And so what I'm doing is I'm thinking, you know, Emmett Fox does it so nice. Don't think about the Statue of Liberty. Don't think about the Statue of Liberty. Don't think about the Statue of Liberty. What are you thinking about? The Statue of Liberty. Don't think about drinking, Paul. Don't think about drinking. Don't think about drinking so much. Don't think about drinking so much. Don't think about drinking Jameson. Start thinking about drinking beer. I had a therapist once say, have you ever tried wine? It's like I couldn't wait for that hour to end. I have never tried wine. I went to the bar, true story. I left the therapist, went to the bar, and I said, I'd like a glass of wine. And the bartender said, okay, what would you like? And I said, a beer. I didn't know there'd be so many questions with wine. All right? So what this whole chapter we read and what the work we're about to start doing is going to tell us not to renounce drinking. Don't renounce drugging. Don't swear it off forever. It's going to say, stop facing this way, and then what takes my guilt away? Slowly. I'm sorry, guys. It's slowly. It takes some inventory, it takes some confessing, and it takes some work. It takes a lot of service work. It takes a lot. It takes a lot of one-on-one time. You probably have to give up the Netflix for a while. You might even have to give up golf, and even, God forbid, you take a couple days off of work, or don't get that job. The book says, we straighten out, we're going to read this next week. We straighten out spiritually, and then the physical and the mental follow. So what we're trying to do, and when you're working with newcomers, get this across to them. And when they decide to go to a sunset with their wife versus come and learn and maybe get new ideas, that maybe that's the problem, that maybe your wife is coming before God and before your sobriety. So what my sponsor had me do was stop talking about my drunkalogs. And so let's start talking about God, and let's start talking about this. Let's start talking about what is going on between these ears. And what happened is, because we've read so many pages now, this is our 7th meeting, so I've had 6 meetings with my sponsor. I'm really starting to trust him. I'm really starting to trust him. You know why I'm starting to trust him? He's starting to tell me about some of the things he did. Throughout all these readings, you've seen areas where it opens up some conversation. Did you ever drink like that? Did you ever think like that? Did you ever do that? Huh? You ever swear off drinking and then come home drunk shortly? Huh? You ever go to a therapist and he recommends wine and we start telling these stories, so I start to trust him. And then I start to tell him, you know what I was thinking this morning, dude? He goes, yeah, really? That's what you're thinking? Yeah, that's what I'm thinking. And they don't turn away, they don't run, they don't start their hair on fire. So I want you to start thinking about guilt as a fact, that I don't feel guilty, that I am guilty, and that I do feel regret, remorse, and shame. And I'm seeking relief from my regret and remorse and shame. And if I want to get it right away, there's nothing like a line of cocaine to make me get, there isn't anything, man. Or smoke a joint. The doctors that I'm going to are prescribing meds for me they want me to feel relief. Anthony DeMello does a beautiful description. Anthony, if you don't know Anthony DeMello, always look him up. He talks about, he's a therapist, a licensed, he died a while ago, but he says, our job is to make you comfortable in the sin. That's a therapist's job. Our job is to make, that's why they give me medication, because they don't have an answer for removing. The steps we're about to enter into removes it. And I don't act like that anymore. I'm reborn. So next week, make sure you have a notepad with you, because guess what we're going to get into? Let's get into some of the work. I don't know, I'm pretty excited. I hope you guys are too. Can we end, any questions, first of all, before we close with the Serenity Prayer? Yeah.
How long after this is that?
Nice and loud. How long are they going to be posted? Oh, good question, Jeff. Probably right away, now that we're up and running, right?
Yeah, it takes a couple days.
Couple days. Thank you, so you can watch next week. Yeah, we're going to miss you. All right, thanks, everyone.